Welcome to the final episode of Boschendal, the Nicholas Red Blazer series, where myself and Maponyane meet 8 different South African entrepreneurs and tell their stories. And we wrap up with somebody you might not think as an entrepreneur. He's certainly a ferocious character, Tendai the Beast, Mtawarira, not just a Springbok and a World Cup winner though, but also a man who started his own business and discovering just how much he loves his brand new journey. Hello and a warm welcome to the final episode of Boschendal, the Nicholas Red Blazer series, a series where Maponyane and I had a great deal of fun meeting an extraordinary array of people who are entrepreneurial in all sorts of different ways and inspiring in all sorts of different ways. And so we end, Maps, on a really high note because we've got a good friend to us both and somebody who the world knows as this terrifying figure on a rugby field who's normally scaring the living daylights out of 15 opponents and probably the referee as well, but has now reinvented herself. What a way to finish with Mr. Mtawarira.
It couldn't be any better. Probably my skinniest friend, it must be said. But it's a real pleasure to be able to have Tendai on the show, especially with your newly found love for entrepreneurship and the new, direction in reinventing yourself.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me on the show, Dan and Maps. I'm really excited to tell you about what I'm up to. I guess I had to reinvent myself after a very successful rugby career, and I knew that entrepreneurship would be, the key to that. So yeah, excited to chat to you guys.
The journey of a sports person for so many years in South Africa, you finished playing, you either went and sold photocopies for Nashua, which meant playing golf 7 times a week, or you went and did some coaching, or you joined Supersport in the commentary box. You've done none of that. You've also planned a long way. Tell us about your rugby career, and especially the latter half of it being the side that we saw, but that away from that, you were starting to build up a business, starting to learn what life beyond rugby was going to be.
Yeah, Dan, for me, it was really important to prepare for my next chapter. So I was very fortunate, at an early age, whilst I was still playing rugby, I met a guy called Val Bartman. You might be familiar with him. He's a, ex-professional rugby player. He played at the highest level. And then he transitioned pretty well. And, I started the security business that became the biggest and most prominent in South Africa. So he took me in under his wing and became my mentor. So I started off as a brand ambassador doing cool adverts and, the TV for Fidelity. And then from there, it actually grew to me actually being a shareholder. And I got actually interested in what he was doing because I thought security and the beast kind of go hand in hand because, for me, I've always been pro, looking after people, protecting people and protecting people's assets. So it just kind of resonated in a big way to me. And from there, I just started learning about the industry. I did my induction whilst I was still playing. So probably, it took about, a year for me to really understand how the security industry works. So I did that, on off weeks when we were playing Super Rugby. On an off week, I would go and spend time in the office because I knew this was, critical for me just to make sure that I know what I want to do my next chapter. So when I retired, I joined the business fully, and I'm currently running an SMME that is fully supported by Fidelity called Umlindi Security.
Mr. CEO.
I mean, congratulations on that, and it's been amazing seeing how you've been building that from the ground up. You are constantly in board meetings and structuring all sorts of things, and you're also still studying too. Yeah. But I feel like we've run far ahead to exactly where you are now. When you were still playing, what were you thinking you were going to live after rugby before this encounter with Fidelity? Because I mean, it wasn't that simple. Otherwise, you would also be selling shaving equipment with Nick still.
Yeah, that's a fact, Maps. I think me. I was really driven, to make sure that I know exactly what I want to do, post rugby, because I came from humble beginnings. I came from a really tough background. I didn't have much, so I knew that rugby was not going to be forever. So I guess I learned through other people's mistakes. I saw guys that I played with, ex-rugby players, that didn't know what they were going to do after rugby, and when they retired, they were lost. So I told myself I don't want that for myself. So I have to work at it and make sure that, I know exactly what I want to do. So I guess when the opportunity for the security gig came along, I kind of just soaked myself in it.
The skill set that you have from rugby involves burying the opposition front row and tackling people and they don't get up knowing exactly where they are. And that's great for rugby, but it's not a skill set that you translate into a whole lot of other spaces. But there is a lot that you learn from professional sport, a lot that you would have learned from this extraordinary rugby career that you had, that you will have been able to take into your new life as a businessman. What are some of those lessons rugby gave you that apply now?
Yeah, I think rugby taught me a lot of great, lessons. And, most of those lessons now I've kind of applied into my next chapter. I think when you look, at a rugby player's life, for you to be successful, you need to have discipline. You need to have high work ethic. You need to learn, to work in a team. You need to learn how to be the best you can be in your role. And those are the things that I've kind of applied now in my next chapter. I guess, teamwork is right at the top, and I've always tried to make sure that, everybody in my team understands exactly what their role is. And I've got the role of CEO, so I have to be the guy that oversees, how the company is going and what is the vision, long term. And and basically I have to translate that to my subordinates, So I think for me, I've always been that kind of leader that I like to empower everybody around me. So I guess that has been the way I've kind of transferred all those values to the people next to me. So rugby has been key and instrumental to that. So I think, it taught me a great deal and set me up for this next chapter. And I guess, I'm just going to be learning a lot as I go along. But rugby gave me the foundation that I needed.
There's no doubt that being a leader for you has always come absolutely natural, and it's a position that you feel quite comfortable in, even in unfamiliar territory, like being the CEO of a company. But you speak of the discipline playing rugby and teamwork and how you essentially need to be accountable to others. Tell us what it's like from that blood, sweat and tears that you would have on the rugby field to now doing it behind the books while you're studying for your MBA and being accountable to yourself. And it's not about the teamwork anymore, it's the individual who has to pull through and really, I guess, be able to achieve what you really want to. What was the decision behind that, and what's that adjustment been like? Because you have to humble yourself quite a bit from being the beast to now, I guess, the mouse trying to figure it all out.
Yeah, and I think, Maps, for me, the humbleness factor, plays a key role in my life, because I've always been able to adapt, in different environments. And now that, I'm pursuing, this MBA, I won't lie, it was a big call, getting back into class and trying to, listen to lectures for hours on end and doing my assignments. It was a tall task, but I bought into it because I knew that this MBA would be invaluable to my journey and what I want to achieve. So I had to really humble myself in class because I was like the only sportsman, and the rest of, my classmates were, accountants and already established, business people. So I had to just kind of be quiet and listen and, and take that, obviously a lot of advice and direction from others around me. And that actually enabled me to just get comfortable and actually learn and apply myself as I went along. So it's been a really, great journey for me. I've grown a hell of a lot as a person. I was used to using my muscles, my physique on the rugby field. Now I've had to use my brain, I've had to awaken some of the brain cells that might have been dead for quite a while from a million scrums, But it's been enlightening. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I think I've got another year and a half to go, but I'm motivated. I want to complete this MBA. I think when I finish it, it's going to feel like I've won a World Cup.
In this context, so the lecturer is like the coach, right? So are you managing to stay motivated without your lecturer hurling abuse at you?
Yes, I am. No, I am, man. I guess they kind of have their own way of, being strict and, just making sure that you understand exactly what is expected of you. But it's not the same as obviously on the rugby field when you had a coach like screaming in your ear, So yeah, it's different, but I guess you have to respect them and know that they want the best for you.
Every entrepreneurial conversation we've had on this series has brought up one very similar characteristic, and that's drive. Our entrepreneurs still looking to grow and to develop and to learn, and that seems to be exactly the same case for you. But it surely didn't need to be. You'd won a World Cup. You've done everything. How do you keep that drive, and how much is it memories of things like being the kid who arrived with no money on a bicycle in Durban to play a bit of rugby that keep you going, that make you get up in the morning and open the books and just keep pushing yourself?
I think, Dan, for me, I'm very ambitious. I've always been very ambitious by nature. So, I managed to achieve my wildest dreams on the rugby field. But beyond that, I also had other goals that I wanted to attain. So now that I've transitioned into the business world, I'm determined to make this a success. And I want to leave a even greater legacy than I did on the rugby field. So that's my motivation. When I wake up every single morning and I tell myself that, hey, you are representing a lot of people look up to you, so you got to make sure that you put your best, out there every single day, not rest of my laurels, so that's what keeps me, going, my family, I guess, my wife and kids, making sure that I give them the utmost best, I leave an inheritance for them one day, that they don't have to struggle, for me, that is everything, so there's a lot of things that play, a key role in my mindset, in my approach. So yeah, I'm just motivated to achieve so much more and learn, I'm hungry to learn. So I probably, if you get me, in a room with other prominent business people, I'll probably be the quietest guy because I want to hear what the other people are saying, and just learn and be like a sponge and just get everything in so I can grow and become the best version of myself.
That's such an inspiring set of words there, being the quietest person in the room. It's not a great trait we have as people, but it is a great trait of Mr. Mtawarira, who was the ultimate team man. And it's a team that sits so nicely with the wine that we're about to try. It is the Nicholas, the red blend. And creating a blend is like creating a team. You have to bring those different grapes together and create the wine that sits there perfectly. Jacques Villiers, our winemaker at Boschendal, is the perfect person to pick up on that. Jacques, we've got one member of a great team with us here. You're another member of a great team at Boschendal, but talk to us about wine as a team, bringing together the different components and creating that perfect blend.
Yeah, I'm a great believer in a team sport and team players just making wine. The cellar is a team effort at the end of the day. We've got the guys out there, the growers, we've got the viticulturists, myself, we're quite a good team as well. But then just focusing on the various components, of course, there's certain allocations, there's a lot of good players, but we will take in the grapes, the players into the cellar, we will make it, we will craft it, we will give it all of our energy to try and make and to try and achieve the end Nicholas blend at the end of the day. But we are continuously watching it right through the year. We're checking, we're tasting, because there will be some vineyards that will be, not on form at the time, or for the specific vintage, something that's maybe overpowering. For instance, something like Petit Verdot, like a real front row player can be, maybe it's too overpowering towards the rest of the team. Of course, Shiraz, which is a good equalizer, that's the guy that's always calm, maybe the captain. So this is a non-conventional blend with all the border varietals, but with Shiraz, that gives you consistency and that really keeps everything almost like a seamless wine and consistency year in, year out. The Shiraz is really forgiving. So at the end of the day, we will watch every single wine as it develops in barrel. And then once again, after the batches in barrel is made, we will go and do a selection or tasting selection or hand selection of specific barrels once again to achieve the ultimate goal. So, and it's just like any team. Let's take the Springboks. They will always go and check out. There will be minor tweaks depending on what happened the previous Saturday or the previous game, and they will always be tweaking to ensure that you've got the best possible team on the field. So exactly the same for Nicholas. There will always be slight tweaking. It will be more or less the same, but it's not a recipe. It will vary from vintage to vintage. Just if I can take an example, 2017 was a seamless vintage and it was quite nice, but it was already quite classical and elegant, and it was quite a cold vintage. So, you know, we could have less Shiraz, a little bit more Cabernet Sauvignon. So we could play around with the various components. But for instance, in 2017, the Cabernet Franc didn't work. With Cabernet Franc is usually a 3% or 2% of the blend. It's a very crucial part of the blend, but if it doesn't work, we don't include it in that specific season or specific vintage.
So there we go, the art of making wine as a team, and it's a blend that comes together just as well as a rather successful rugby team did a couple of years ago in Japan. I would have said 2 years ago, cheers Beast. I'm going to say cheers Mr. Mtawarira, businessman and entrepreneur.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers, Tendai. I remember having a conversation a few years ago with a former South African cricketer, and he put it very simply. He said that the fame that you get from sport, the fact that people know you, it'll open the door, it'll get you the conversation, but it won't get you the deal. Is that a fair assessment of what it's been like? It's not just been walking in, hey, I'm Beast, I've won a World Cup, I'm going to get every deal I want. You actually do have to work properly hard at making this new business of yours operate successfully.
Yeah, that's a fair assessment. I guess the legacy and reputation you created on the playing field does play a factor, in you getting through the door. But people want to see if you're really going to add value to their business. So that's where the crux of the matter is. You have to actually do the work and be able to provide the service. So with the security company, there's a lot of other security companies out there competing for the same job, for the same tender. So what is your point of difference? So you always have to mention that up front, and I'm very fortunate that I've got a business like Fidelity Services Group that supports me, with the infrastructure, with the manpower, with the training. So that kind of, gives us a lot of credibility. So that's why we've been able to just move along and grow as a business with not too much of a challenge, when it comes to actually just trying to prove that we can do the work. So yeah, but it is a factor. The name itself is not going to do the job. Yeah.
But you've done a phenomenal job in positioning that name into something with integrity, something that has heart, something that represents hard working. There aren't any scandals surrounding you. You're reliable as well, and you've managed to establish this longevity where even post your career, you're still endorsing some massive brands who still want to be a part of you and your legacy and what you're still continuing to create. What's it like having that kind of affirmation and co-sign essentially from people like Jay-Z? And I mean Rock Nation's Jay-Z, not the Zulu Nation's Jay-Z. What's that kind of affirmation like post rugby?
I think it's a huge honor, Maps. It's a really huge honor for me, and I'm just so grateful that people gravitate towards me because of who I am, and I've always tried to be authentic. I've never tried to be somebody else, try to be the best version of myself. So, people like that. And that's what has, led, Rock Nation to signing me up. And they think that my story has not been told enough. Obviously I came from a different country to South Africa and made it to the highest level and became, a big role model for young kids. So, there's a lot to be told about that. So they believe that they can amplify that in a big way. So yeah, for me, it's humbling, and I'm just wanting to, like I said, create a legacy in my next chapter of life. So all these partners, all these people that are endorsing me and supporting me, they're going to play a big role in where I want to go to. So I'm just grateful that, I represented integrity, I represented, excellence in everything I did. And that is something that people, aspire to have in their own journey. So yeah, man, it's a huge honor.
One of the toughest challenges in the entrepreneurial space is time and trying to find the time to do everything. Now, if you're not hanging out with Trevor Noah or visiting LA, as we've seen on Instagram recently, you're doing an MBA, but you're also running a company, but you've also got this incredible family of yours. There are other brands you're endorsing. I sometimes think, much as I do with Maps, that maybe there are Mtawarira twins or triplets who are actually covering all of this. Is there a secret to getting that balance, to finding time to make sure that you don't drop one of the multiple balls you seem to be juggling?
Yeah, I think, there is a secret to that, You have to achieve, an equilibrium, ultimate balance between everything you're doing, because you don't want to necessarily obviously deprive, any one sphere of your life that plays a key part. So I've always tried to manage everything well, So we got only so many hours in a day, so you have to always have your diary, done out properly. I've got a great PA. Her name is Michelle. Michelle, I'll give you a shout out. She's probably watching this show. So.
We don't like Michelle because we had to phone her 86 times just to get the 42 minutes we have this morning for your next engagement.
She's amazing. She helps me plan my diary so that I don't miss out on any appointments that I have to, obviously be a part of. So that helps, because it's important that you don't drop, any ball that, you're juggling. And my family, they understand. My wife is very considerate. She knows that I'm always on the road. I have to try and, get even my foundation, on the go, get funding. So I'm constantly trying to meet people. So she understands and she holds the fort, She takes care of the kids when I'm not around. She plays the role of mom and dad. So, I'm grateful for that. And that's why it just gives me that, extra, oomph to just go and, get those deals signed, sign those deals over and, get them to contribute to what I'm trying to do.
You're speaking about how this journey has actually been really kind to you and you've ended up where you are and you've learned along the way and you haven't had too many mishaps, but I know you've had many, many challenges and I know that you've had to try and adjust to being this person now. What are some of those notable moments of just like, geez, am I maybe in too deep where I'm, what's the phrase?
You've bitten off more than you can chew, which
exactly.
For a prop forward is not often a challenge.
More than you can chew, exactly.
Yeah, I think maybe when I was still playing, I think, I did try and do a lot of things, Obviously I was involved with Fidelity and I was also trying to get into other business ventures. So, as you know, when you're in the public eye, you get a lot of people that come and, try to sell you stuff. They try and get you to invest in the business. So I'm not going to mention any names or any organizations because I might just get in trouble. But I did, put in some, small investments in different ventures and, I was trying to make them work and things didn't work out, just because of the climate, because of, the people just not having the best interest, of art, for myself and the investors, things didn't pan out and I lost quite a bit of money. But the fact of the matter is that I learned from that experience, It just taught me that I have to stick to things that I know, and not just try and, just because something is enticing, not just put money into it and think that this is gonna, become a successful venture. So I have to actually learn and understand the business, holistically, not just trust somebody to do the work for me. So that was a great lesson that I learned from that. That's when I bit probably more than that I could chew.
I'm getting philosophical echoes of a famous water boy with some of those lines coming through. And there have been some challenges. It would be, we wouldn't believe you if you said there weren't, but the successes far outweigh them. And a path to those successes, aside from your own considerable talent and application, has been the support of Val Bartman, who's had such an incredible impact on your career. This, on a slightly smaller scale, is your opportunity to do something similar. We wrap up each of these shows by giving you a check from Boschendal, not for yourself, I'm afraid, to visit Downton Nando's, but instead to hand over to somebody who you feel needs a bit of a leg up, who's got some potential, who's got a young business or a young entrepreneurial space where that 10,000 Rand check could really help to push them in the right direction. Who would that be for you, Tendai?
I think the individual that I would want to nominate is a guy called Oscar Shabane. He runs the Hedgehog company, which provides paper towels and serviettes and paper rolls. And I think he's doing great work and I think he needs the assistance.
All right. I love that. I love the fact we can pass it on. And I love the fact that you could pass it on because clearly so many people have helped you to help yourself.
Yeah.
And now you're being able to do something similar.
Yeah, now I'm grateful. Yeah, it's all about, supporting each other. That's what, Ubuntu and, everything is all about supporting. You got to help others in need. And, things have been tough because of the pandemic, because of the unrest. So, there's a lot of businesses out there, small businesses that need assistance. So, just want to play a part in that. Yeah.
And with that in mind, it would be remiss of us not to talk about the amazing work that you're doing with your foundation. What's the vision for that, and what made you want to start that?
Yeah, so that's probably one of my really exciting projects. Yeah, so I started the Beast Foundation last year in August, and it was basically the vehicle on which I wanted to give back. Because like you say there, Dan, a lot was given to me, a lot of people invested in me, and I wouldn't have gotten to the top, of my career and achieved so many great things without that. So now that that I'm retired, I want to pass on the baton to the next generation, and I want to assist young people, to climb their own ladders, to success. And my vision is to empower the youth across Africa through the platforms of sport, education, and life skills development. So we've got a lot of cool projects on the go. We're giving away academic scholarships. We've got a few boot camps coming up, rugby boot camps, basketball boot camp. And we just, want to make a huge impact, and leave an everlasting mark on the continent.
It's amazing and definitely worth toasting to. Thank you
Indeed.
very, very much for your time. It's not often that I, as a South African, get to have time with two gentlemen just south from here, one from, of course, the past in Rhodesia and the present in Zimbabwe. And really, really appreciate having you on the show. It's really, really been fantastic, man.
No, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.
There you go. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
So there we go. If somebody had told you that a famous rugby prop forward was going into security, you'd probably have told them, yes, a nightclub bouncer. Well, no, it's a far different business, and a business in which Tendai Mtawarira is having just as much impact as he did most famously for the Springboks. And what a way to wrap up a Boschendal, the Nicholas Red Blazers series together with Maponyane. I'm Dan Nicholl. We've really enjoyed meeting 8 very different, very vibrant, very inspiring people who've had terrific stories to tell and wonderful ways of telling them. So cheers to our entrepreneurs. Cheers to the entrepreneurial spirit of South Africa. And if you're out there with your own business, keep going strong. We hope you've learned a lesson or two.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Datenda.
Tendai.